This is the new camera-centric flagship from Vivo, the Vivo X90 Pro. With a huge glass circle on the back and vegan leather design, it even looks like a camera. So how good is it actually, and is this the camera phone to beat in 2023? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our Vivo X90 Pro review. Vivo's X90 Pro is the middle sibling of their new lineup, but it's the highest tier that we'll see outside of the Chinese market. The main cam has a huge 1-inch type sensor, the same as we saw recently in the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. There's also a new cutting-edge Mediatek chipset, lightning-fast wired charging plus wireless charging, and a high-res AMOLED display. The looks of the X90 Pro are definitely an evolution of what we saw in last year's X80 Pro. Now Vivo has gone for the full-on camera aesthetic. The grippy vegan leather backing is a new development, and for the global version, black is the only option. The back panel curves into a thin aluminum frame. The round camera bump is now bigger and stands alone, rather than being surrounded by a glass square. And there's one other accent worth mentioning, a glossy etched metal band below the camera that goes from one side of the frame to the other. Actually, if you're into logos and branding on your gear, the Vivo X90 Pro has you covered. You don't always see waterproofing in flagship phones, but the X90 Pro doesn't disappoint. It has IP68 rated protection against water and dust. On the front of the phone is a curved 6.8-inch AMOLED display with a 1260 by 2800 resolution and a 120Hz refresh rate. The resolution actually isn't as high as the QHD panel we saw in last year's model, but it's still sharper than your typical phone at 453 ppi. There's support for 10-bit color depth and HDR10+, and the color accuracy can be excellent, depending on the color mode you choose. The X90 Pro's display is plenty bright. We measured 520 nits maximum with a manual brightness slider, and a boost up to 930 nits in auto mode when in bright conditions. The 120Hz refresh rate smooths out your movements on screen, but the switching here isn't as advanced as the LTPO3 panel of last year's model. Here it can dial down to save energy when idling or within certain apps, but only as low as 60 Hz. Under the displays is an optical fingerprint scanner. It's fast and reliable. And for audio, the X90 Pro has a pair of stereo speakers. The loudness is very good here, and so is the audio quality. You get likable midtones and vocals, well-presented highs, and noticeable bass.
I'm wide awake, but you're a nightmare.
You can get the Vivo X90 Pro with 256 or 512 gigs of storage on board, but that isn't expandable through microSD. The global version of the Vivo X90 Pro runs Funtouch OS 13 on top of Android 13. It's a highly customized interface with full Google support and plenty of custom features. You'll find simple blue circular buttons within the notification shade, rather than Google's large bubble-style ones. In the Dynamic Effects submenu, there are a bunch of customization options for the home screen, lock screen, and animation effects. One nifty feature is that you can hold the volume down key to launch an app or do a certain task. A dedicated Ultra Game mode is available, and it has a ton of features, including 4D game vibration and an esports mode. You even get an in-game overlay, similar to what you'd find on dedicated gaming phones. Another unique feature is the Smart Remote app, through which you can use the phone's IR blaster to control various appliances. And there's even an alternative to Google Play here, called the V App Store. The Vivo X90 Pro is the first phone we've encountered with a Mediatek Dimensity 9200 chipset. It's top of the line, bringing several advancements in graphics performance, including a hardware-based ray tracing engine. On top of that, there's a 6th gen AI processing unit. And like the latest Snapdragon chipsets, you get support for advanced memory tech like UFS 4.0 and LPDDR5X RAM. And then there's a 3rd gen custom image processing chip called the Vivo V2. This chip provides several enhancements over the previous version, and without getting bogged down in the details, should provide the fastest and most efficient camera processing yet from Vivo. When it comes to benchmarks, the Vivo X90 Pro does an excellent job, posting CPU scores that are notably improved over phones running on a Dimensity 9000 or a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. It is slightly outperformed by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 in both CPU and GPU tests, but still holds its own. In addition, the X90 Pro has a massive heatsink-based cooling system, and the thermal management was good during our hour-long CPU stress test. During our graphics stress test though, the phone did become uncomfortably hot. The Vivo X90 Pro has a slightly larger battery than last year, 4870 mAh versus 4700. Battery life is much improved, with the X90 Pro scoring a respectable endurance rating of 96 hours in our proprietary tests. The X80 Pro scored 79 hours. The battery is split into two cells to support the new 120-watt charging, and the adapter comes in the box. With it, we were able to charge the X90 Pro from 0 to 100% in 24 minutes. Incredible! And there's support for wireless charging too. Now we're on to the X90 Pro's cameras. Like I mentioned, the star of the show is the 50-megapixel main camera, which features a huge 1-inch type Sony IMX979 sensor. That's the largest available on a smartphone right now. The rest of the setup is no slouch either. Besides the main cam, there's a 50-megapixel 2x telephoto cam with an extra wide aperture, and a 12-megapixel ultra-wide cam which can also take macro shots. The cameras are Zeiss branded, and the camera software has been developed with Zeiss as well. You can toggle the Zeiss color mode right in the viewfinder. Photos come out at 12.5 megapixels by default due to pixel binning, and they're some of the best you can get from a smartphone these days. You don't get the Zeiss color mode by default. The colors are instead punchy and saturated. These photos are incredibly detailed, with a natural-looking rendition and balanced sharpness. There's no noise, and the dynamic range is outstanding. Here are a few camera samples taken with the Zeiss color mode toggled on. Rather than punchy colors, the color rendition is true to life, with excellent white balance and spot-on saturation. You can shoot in a high-res 50-megapixel mode, and the results are impressive. The properties overall are just as good as the 12.5-megapixel photos. Portrait photos from the main cam are impressive, with excellent-looking subjects and very proficient separation. The portrait mode is intended to be used with the telephoto cam though. It's actually referred to as the portrait camera. The quality is equally as excellent, and the subject separation is outstanding. The 2x telephoto camera bins pixels to produce 12.5 megapixel photos, and it does a great job overall. You get low noise levels, wide dynamic range, likable contrast, and punchy colors. The detail level is good too, but not as excellent as the main camera. Like on the main cam, switching to the Zeiss mode provides much more natural looking colors. The 12-megapixel ultra-wide cam produces photos with a satisfying level of detail, low noise, and well-straightened corners. The sharpness is alright, and both the contrast and dynamic range are above average. The colors are as vivid as on the other cameras. And on the ultra-wide, the Zeiss mode again provides a darker exposure and less saturated colors. Since the ultra-wide cam has autofocus, you can use it to take macro close-up shots from as close as 4 centimeters. These are superb. They're detailed, sharp, and colorful, with excellent contrast and good dynamic range. In low light conditions, there is some multi-image stacking involved, as we had to wait about a second for each shot to process. Photos taken with the main camera are exemplary, with excellent resolve detail, great exposure, praiseworthy noise reduction, and lovely color saturation. We like the dynamic range too. Blown highlights are rare. There is a night mode you can turn on, but it doesn't make much of a difference in most cases. Like I mentioned, there's image stacking and processing already happening by default. If you switch to the telephoto cam at night, the X90 Pro will use it. These photos are solid. They're detailed, with low noise, very good exposure, plenty of contrast, and good dynamic range. The colors look great too. Like with the main cam, the night mode is almost identical to the default mode. The ultra-wide photos we took at night are solid too. The detail isn't that impressive, but it's decent, and there's a nice exposure, punchy colors, and great dynamic range. Here on the ultra-wide, the dedicated night mode makes a slight difference. It sometimes yields more detail and a touch of extra sharpness, in addition to somewhat brighter skies. For selfies, the X90 Pro has a 32-megapixel front-facing cam. These photos have just an average level of detail, but you get good contrast and colors, low noise, and wide dynamic range. Now on to video recording. With the main cam, you can capture video in up to 8K at 24 FPS. 8K video is great, with plenty of detail, lively colors, good contrast, and wide dynamic range. Some of the foliage does look a bit artificial though. 4K footage is outstanding in our book. The detail level is flagship worthy, the sharpening is on point, and the overall processing is natural looking. And like the 8K clips, you get vivid colors, likable contrast, and wide dynamic range. The telephoto camera's zoomed 4K video is solid. You get good detail levels and balanced sharpening. accurate colors, no noise, and wide dynamic range. You can shoot 8K video while zoomed, but that would be a digital crop from the main camera. There's no 8K recording from the ultra-wide cam either, but its 4K videos are impressive, even class-leading for this sort of camera. The detail level is superb, and so is everything else. You get great sharpness and colors, wide dynamic range, and low noise. Electronic stabilization is supported across all cameras and resolutions, and it does a nice job. Let's move on to low-light video recording. 8K video quality from the main cam at night is impressive. It's detailed and sharp enough, with good contrast, wide dynamic range, realistic colors, and tolerable noise. 4K low-light videos from the main cam are quite good too. They have more than enough detail, excellent exposure and color saturation, low noise, and wide dynamic range, with well-contained highlights. But wait, there's more! The vivo X90 Pro has a video night mode and is supported in all resolutions except for 8K. Night mode footage from the main cam is thoroughly impressive. The level of detail is amazing, the exposure is outstanding, and so is the dynamic range. There is no noise, and the colors are very accurate. It's some of the best low-light video we've seen yet from a phone. The 4K videos from the telephoto camera are very good. The noise reduction is not too harsh, so we see a bit of noise, but that's why we enjoy good detail levels. And there's good exposure and color saturation and a wide dynamic range. The 4K low-light videos from the ultra-wide camera are decent. They are a bit dark, and there is some noise present, but the detail level is acceptable and the colors are nice. There's no night mode support here or on the telephoto. So that's the vivo X90 Pro. It's an excellent flagship package with not much to miss. The good battery life and incredibly fast charging stand out from last year's model. And of course the camera performance is quite impressive. It's one of the best around. There are a couple of things that could be better. The screen refresh rate doesn't dial down as low as many competitors, and you can find alternatives with a higher zoom level than 2 times. But these are just nitpicks. If you're looking for a camera phone with the bells and whistles that's less expensive than the other top flagships out there, the vivo X90 Pro is definitely worth recommending. Thanks for watching, guys. Here are some alternatives to the vivo X90 Pro that you can check out, starting with Samsung's Galaxy S23 Ultra. Another option is Huawei's Mate 50 Pro. Let us know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.